Hello, this is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is May 21st, 2024. Welcome to the podcast. Today I want to talk about free speech, and as you are aware, that is protected by the Constitution. But what I want to focus on is the freedom of speech and of press and the right to peaceably to assemble. The podcast is how free speech has changed and the transformation on free speech currently. I want to hit three areas: the Supreme Court. I want to hit news agencies shaping their opinion, free speech by foreign governments, and then wrap it up. So let's start with the Supreme Court. As you are probably aware, there are some cases before the Supreme Court now. One of them is platform liability for content for violent extremist content. Now, this has been a battle for a couple of years, and I could actually do a whole show just on this one. We are getting input from people outside of the United States. That's the point for the free speech, that should we be allowing this? And then another one is True Threats Online, a case involving Facebook messages that led to a defendant's conviction. Okay, so that one looks more like it's in-house. But as I'm trying to assert here, freedom of speech has just totally changed with other players getting out there trying to influence this in negative ways. Encouraging illegal immigration. This one was interesting because there are people out there abroad who are trying to encourage undocumented immigrants to come to the United States. The Supreme Court said that these players cannot do that. It was U.S. versus Hansen, unless if you wanted to listen to it. Okay. Here's the big one: public officials censoring social media content. Now, this one has gone back and forth, and as you know, the biggest player in this one is the 2020 election. And you know the details of that. And like I said, these have evolved with free speech of people making comments and not necessarily having any facts to back it up. Now, you can decide which way you want to believe on that. So this would be a separate program. I'm just mentioning it for the evolution of free speech. Government mandates for platforms to carry certain online speech. That's tied to this one a little bit. And the court will decide again if information out there coming from various resources without some kind of validation, if they can be out there that people can see it and believe it. So what I want to talk about next is news agencies shaping our opinion. And this one is tied to the other one from the aspect that social media, which some of these news agencies have turned into, are putting out articles that they are saying are facts. Well, and how do we know that they're facts? So back in the college days, you had to reference wherever you got the information from. Maybe we should have them do that. And also, we're getting information from other countries' news agencies as well, and that information cannot be validated. So the facts, how do we know what the facts are in social media and with the news agencies? We have no idea. Free speech by foreign governments. As I said, all of these are tied together. The Middle Eastern agencies are pumping information into the country. One of the big fights is with TikTok now, and the U.S. citizens being monitored and influenced from sources in TikTok, etc., and that they might be tied to China. Then, with both wars going on, we have our allies and our adversaries giving us information via Twitter, via Facebook, those types of media. And as I am trying to assert here, this is affecting free speech in our country and is generating this notion of how do we know that it's true? How do we validate it? How do we make sure that people are getting the correct information before they are making their final opinion? Another one, free speech with elections. We have an election this year for president, and as in 2020, we have people saying that they can be tampered with by outside actors telling people information that's not true, etc. Like I said, that's a separate program in itself, but free speech has evolved and we need to change for it. So the next one is free speech by foreign groups. So we're seeing that at the college now with Israel and Hamas. And we have protests. Remember, I said that the Constitution says the right to assemble. There's a big difference between assembling and protesting. Who are these people? And if they're students here on visas, should they really be doing free speech on college campuses and to the media? Because for U.S. citizens, people are forgetting that these rules apply to U.S. citizens. And quite frankly, I don't see any other nations on the planet where Americans are protesting against a foreign government and then they're being allowed to stay in the country. And as a matter of fact, you never hear about it. We only hear about protests in the United States about the wars because they have protested other stuff. So that's very important. And the American people have to educate themselves to know the differences. But with the current crisis in the Middle East and the Ukraine war has been going on for several years. I've talked about it in the podcast. And you have to wonder on Twitter, Facebook, some of the other social media, even CNN and all of those sources. You've got firsthand accounts of people saying things to sway our opinion. Should this be allowed? Because when countries are at war, they both should be trying to get other people in the country to agree with them, not necessarily us or swaying us to pay out more money. What we need to do is the American people really need to scrutinize some of these free speech assertions. Free speech is wonderful, and I'm using free speech to tell you what I'm talking about right now. We need to educate ourselves on how it has evolved. I'm giving you some examples and challenge you to look at how things are now and how people need to take the steps to validate what they are reading, what they are seeing, etc. The government cannot pass any more laws to protect us because they can't enforce the laws and they can't watch everything. And the only free speech that I would say shouldn't be done is hate speech. And us having a healthy debate over things that people have said is very important. The only detail missing is people should be able to validate what they're saying from some kind of source. That way, people don't get upset, especially if they know that's not true. But people in the US will respect it coming from a source, and then whoever the source is backing up what they're saying with some kind of data to why they think that this is true. And if we can start doing that, free speech in the US would have evolved. And even though people they might not agree with you, they will respect you because they know what your sources are and what you're basing your data on. This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Let me know what you think.